Okay. Well, welcome back, everybody. This is our second discussion on sharing the three principles with those struggling with addiction. Elise, unfortunately, is not able to make it today. She wanted, her idea today was to just kind of put it out to the group what you guys want to discuss, what you want to talk about, if you have any questions or if you have any experiences you want to share with working with people. Okay, how many people here are actively working with people in addiction? Let me switch views here. I'm sorry, I can't see everybody. There we go. That's better. I know, Tom, you've been doing some work out there.
Well, yeah, I wondered what you meant by work.
Well, just talking to people,
Yeah.
Just, it could be a casual conversation. This doesn't have to be anything like you have an office in a professional setting and, fake diplomas hanging on the wall behind you.
I'm an expert and I'm here to help. Yeah.
Yeah, with expert misspelled.
Yeah, right. Yeah, well, yeah, I've been doing that forever, although I try and not so much anymore. So.
Why is that?
Oh, I don't know. Yeah, it usually does not end well. So, and then it was more for me ever, I think, maybe than it was for them, because nobody really wanted to change the way they were anyway. And you know how hard it is for somebody who really wants to. It's hard enough. And so if they really aren't even on board with the idea of quitting or changing, then yeah. It's like when I don't agree with somebody politically, we just don't talk about it. So.
Well, that's a good point, though, to talk about, Tom. That may be a good topic to start out with today is, when to have that conversation with somebody. Because that is a really important thing, is that they have to want to change.
Right.
I know when I was actively in my addictions, I didn't really want to listen to what people had to say. I kind of remember throughout the years, a bunch of people pointing me toward AA and, all these different groups and stuff. And I'm like, well, that's great for people that need it.
That's for drunks.
Yeah, that's for those people that need it. I just like to get drunk every day. I mean, it just didn't even register. So that is an important part of beginning that conversation with somebody, is kind of when I start working with somebody new, I start talking about general life stuff and kind of get an idea of where they're at. Because if they don't see that their addiction has any impact on their life, any negative impact, then there's no need to go any further with that conversation on addiction.
Right. They're good with it. So, right.
But that being said, when people get this understanding, the addictions will drop off.
Well, and see, that's why I thought I could subtly just interject things in there. But it's also like, well, she was always, when I'm thinking, it was always so intoxicated that I finally just gave up, that I knew that it wasn't registering and it was just a waste of time. And she would get real hostile. How dare you even say that I'm a drug addict? I'm not even a pothead. And yeah, in my mind, I mean the Xanax and the morphine and the gabapentin and it's like, oh yeah, no, there's no problem here. So then there's no reason for us to continue talking either, because I don't want to hang out with you when you're barely conscious. And so, I say that was one of those that didn't end well, but maybe I planted a seed, and
Well, here's the thing is, and I had this experience with a couple of people I worked with where I did not actually end up talking to them about addiction. I just talked about how they experienced life and dealing with, you know, stress and anxiety and stuff like that. And it kind of led to them later on going, hey, you know, I'm just not smoking cigarettes as much as I used to, or I'm not getting high like I used to. I don't feel the need to get drunk every night. And it just evolved into that. So dealing with people with addictions doesn't have to be dealing directly with anything about addiction, because this understanding applies to everything in life. You know, so once people get a good grounding in the three principles, things just start making sense all over the place. So that's another approach. If you want to help somebody you know has an addiction problem, they don't know it yet or don't care. You know, maybe they're still in that point where they enjoy it more than it hurts. You know what I mean?
Right.
Have another conversation with them. Like, so how do you deal with work? You know, how's your work life going? And it sucks. I go in every day and people are just, you know, assholes, and, you know, whatever. Then you can open up that conversation about how to deal with coworkers. And it's the same understanding that helps you deal with coworkers that helps you not want to pick up just to escape reality. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So that is a great approach.
I originally thought that was the approach or the plan, but at some point, you know, when she can't even stay awake enough and starts burning herself with cigarettes, you know, but there was too much going. It was way above my pay grade, and that's why I realized I had to just get out. I'm like, she burns the house down or something when I've been here, you know. But then I questioned, why am I doing it? And I'm doing it for me. And then, you know, other events have made me, you know, question just how important that, you know, should be my focus on thinking of others in that way, and, you know, just moving on with my regular life just the way it was before I became a drunk.
That's good, but if you're open to it, people will show up. You know, you'll just have that person who randomly starts a conversation with you, and it opens it up for it. You know,
well, right now, I need to investigate whatever it was you were saying about centered recovery and what they're doing, and being able to do your own local meeting and that sort of thing. If I was to go to the point of hosting a meeting, then at least the people coming are there because they have a concern or want to learn.
Yeah. Well, and that's part of the reason I wanted to start a meeting before I got too much into working with a lot of people locally, just simply because of that. You know, you're playing the numbers game. When you're just kind of going out and you see somebody having a problem and you strike up a conversation, it's not the most effective approach, especially while they're intoxicated. You know, they may be open a little bit if they're in that place where they're, you know, they're intoxicated enough where they're to that point they don't feel good about it, you know. But no, the centered recovery approach kind of wraps the three principles in a shell of mindfulness. And I kind of like that approach because people they're already familiar with the term mindfulness. Although most people don't really know what it means, they're at least familiar with that. So it incorporates the three principles into a mindfulness-based program, which I like. And it's, you know, the discussion part is very open. It's all three principles. It's all, you know, just exactly what I've been doing for a few years now. It's just kind of the opening statement, and you know, there's a couple little like 5-minute parts of the meeting where you do like mindfulness things and stuff. And those things are actually, and I know in the 3P community, there's a lot of talk about, well, there's nothing to do. There's nothing you should do. There's no techniques. And that's true in a way. But if people aren't able to calm their minds down enough to see this, then nothing's going to happen for them. And the mindfulness that that they're talking about is more of the broader term of mindfulness. It's not like Zen Buddhism or any particular practice, which is, you know, a big part of why I agreed to join with them. As some simple things that help me. And this is, you know, something that I share with a lot of the people I work with, is mindfulness can be as simple as when you're doing like everyday, mundane, repetitive tasks, like washing the dishes or washing your hands, even simple things like that, rather than allowing this to just kind of go and do what it does. You know, you're washing your hands and you already think about the next thing you have to do, right? So instead of that, take that time while you're washing your hands and just simply pay attention to washing your hands. What does the soap smell like? Don't judge it. Don't label it. Just notice what the soap smells like, how it feels on your hands. What does the water feel like? Just simple things like that. And what I found is after a period of time of me practicing that, it started happening automatically in other aspects of my life. You know, like even like walking down the hallway at work. Instead of going through my head on the next thing I'm going to do, I'm just noticing what's in the hallway. You know, and it just started happening automatically for me. And I think that helped, because I started doing that stuff before I actually came across the three principles. And I think that actually helped. When I came across the three principles, I was able to absorb it better. Because the three principles is all about being present to what is. And so is mindfulness. So if people are more open to listening to mindfulness, there's no problem talking about that. Does that make sense? It's all incorporated. It all relates to each other. Did you have something earlier, Mary? You looked like you were about to start talking right when Tom started.
Well, yeah, I don't know. I know I've listened with Tom a little. I'm not sure what to say or how to share. I'm here to be able to improve my ability to share the three principles more. I'm gratefully, I live here in St. Paul, and gratefully I've been able to be mentored by some pretty wonderful people in the last couple of years. And I go regularly to a Saturday night meeting. Maybe some of you know Ned Lewis. Oh, well, and actually I'm not hitting that meeting so much anymore, but some friends of mine and I from that group have started a Monday night meeting down at the Recovery Church in St. Paul. And I've been a part of this for over 3 years. It has made a wonderful, wonderful difference in my life. And before that, gratefully, I was a part of a wonderful, wonderful Alcoholics Anonymous recovery community in St. Paul for a long time. I mean, I'm great. You know, yeah, we're so about not saying numbers, but a long time I've been in recovery. And all of my experience before I made it to the three principles did help me hear this message as well. And now, actually, to be honest, I was a little irritated by one of the mentors that I had here in St. Paul, who I respect a lot, when I was told that alcoholism isn't a disease, okay? And at any rate, over the winter, I have now, as service work, gone to detox almost weekly. So I talk to wet alcoholics and I try to share the message that they are worth it to get into recovery. They are worth it to come and hang around in alcohol. I'm more about helping them put the cork in the jug. I'm more about doing that than trying to tell them that they're thinking. I don't know how to share. I'm not able to go to detox and I'm not able to share, you know, what the three principles are. I'm more about helping them understand that, gee, you can live a new way. You can make a new choice here. You can come to Alcoholics Anonymous and find out that you're not alone. I'm more about that, helping them get on their feet so that they have hope, so that someday they can get this message too. So and truly, it's kind of strange. I'm sorry, I don't want to go on too long here. Last night, I still love all my friends in recovery. I'm a part of a great recovery community, and if I don't show up at a meeting, I'm still going to see them next week, and they know I'm okay. And a lot of these people, I know they're okay. But I was at a meeting last night, and it's really kind of hard for me to speak like directly to some of the steps because my mind isn't all about the steps all the time now. It's all about that I'm a part of God. I'm in and it is about present moment, and it's about that I'm in a friendly universe rather than a hostile universe. And anyway, I don't know really what my point is here, but I'm more about helping people know that they can get here. That I don't know. I don't get how a person that is really, really sick, on the verge of dying, just out of the hospital from pancreatitis. I don't know how the three principles, I don't know how to convey that anyway. It's not that I don't believe that this stuff is possible. I don't know how to convey it yet. But I'm certainly about trying to be a compassionate person to say, hey, if you show up and if you try and if you have the desire, the want, you can get out of this. A lot of them are in pretty rough shape by the time they're at detox, homeless,
Right.
whatever. So at any rate, I like doing this work right now, but I don't really know how to share the three principles message first. I've been doing the three principles with friends for 3.5 years, and it has helped me immensely. So that's enough for me for now.
So don't share it first.
Right, I don't.
I don't know, there's no one approach to this. You know what I mean? If somebody needs to, be in AA for a few years and have some sober time, some clean time before their brain clears up and, they kind of drop some of that extra thinking going on, great. I was in AA for almost 4 years. I was in for about 1.5 years after I came across the principles. I even had a 3 principles based AA meeting that I ran for a year. So there's no one single approach that works for each person. Mm-hmm. And that's part of why we're doing this group right here, is to talk about the different ways that we share this. You have your way, and that's the only way you can share, because that's your experience. That's where you came from. And yes, AA can be a very useful bridge to come across. That's how I look at it. AA was there at a time when I needed it. The fellowship is amazing. I did traveling for work while I was in AA, and I traveled most of the northeastern U.S., and everywhere I went, I could find a meeting and I could walk into that room and feel like I was with a group of friends. So there's something to be said for that. It helped me through a lot of hard times while I was traveling and I was depressed and I was whatever. And just being able to walk into that room and say hi, and everybody would say, hey, and they'd want to know about me and they'd ask me where I'm from and what I do. And, it felt good. Mm. So maybe that's what someone else needs, because unfortunately right now we don't have that in the 3P community. Not yet. It's coming. But we don't have that type of thing. It takes a while to build that up, and that's why I'm starting that local meeting here, and I'll have hopefully a meeting every day of the week. Like I said, not all about addiction, but people will have a place to go where they feel welcomed, where they feel like people get where they're coming from and aren't going to judge them for the things that they do. So go for it. Whatever approach feels best for you. And then you see that person, 6 months later, and you can see that they're not quite as stuck on not being drunk today or not being high today. And maybe that's the time to open up the conversation a little further. Because to me, that was the part that was missing in AA. I got sober, and then it kind of, my experience was it kind of stopped there. It didn't really teach me how to deal with life. So, you know, I was a few years sober and still miserable as could be. But that's not everybody else's experience. So everybody has a different approach. Joel, what's going on?
Hi, everybody. Something occurred to me that I've also been mulling over a lot this year, and I'll just share that. And I don't mean it to be advisey. This is just my own experience, but maybe there's something in it that's helpful. That would be great. I noticed for myself, and many times having a similar sort of concern like Mary was expressing. You know, really wanting to share this helpful understanding with people who but for knowing what I knew, they would be better, and that kind of thinking would be going on with me. But a big aha moment this year for me was that I had sort of been looking at what I knew as just another alternative tool to all the other tools that were out there. And that somehow I was hoping to convince them or sell them of the efficacy of my tool in comparison to theirs. And then it was, at best, it was a hit or miss job. Often a miss. and the thing that changed a lot for just, first of all, just for my own nicer experience of the world and living with this understanding in my head was, oh, wait a minute. I'm trying to grab a human truth and package it as a tool to do something with it. The more I see it as a human truth that exists in everybody, period. And I live life from times that I'm clear about that. That alone seems to have a really positive impact on people. And even if my words get all garbled or I say them half in Pig Latin and channeling Esperanto that I don't really speak, they kind of get something from communicating to them from that connection and seeing that truth inside of them. But other times when I'm honey-tongued and eloquent, but my intention is to utilize this understanding to affect something, it's really less impactful. You know, people don't really remember things. And so I've been trying to just in my quiet moments or just gently whenever possible, reflect on what is my human experience and where does it come from, and who am I and who are we really in this world? If I'm not clear about that, it will look like something out there needs to be handled or settled or reconfigured or manipulated or run from in order for me myself to be okay. I could be trying to help somebody with this wonderful understanding, not knowing that I made it into a thing that if they don't get it, I'm not going to be totally okay. And then I've totally stepped off of the path of even what it is that I've been trying to share with them.
Right.
So the more that I could see this inside of me and just know it as a truth and just out of love, just share it. It seems to be a different conversation with each person along the way. I don't Just, I don't know what you heard in that, but hopefully that was helpful.
No, that's great. And something you said made me think of something. I had some sales jobs years ago. One of the biggest things that they always pushed in sales was never put down a prior purchase. You'll lose a sale really quickly that day if you put down a prior purchase. It's no different that, with us going up to people in a 12-step program and saying, oh, well, that's not as effective as what I have. They're putting down something that they've already chosen. They may be comfortable there and they may enjoy what they have there. And it will close them off very quickly to listening to what you have to say about what we're doing. And there are people through, the process of the 12 steps and everything, they come to this kind of understanding. They don't call it the 3 principles. They never even try to put a label on it. But I knew some people in the program when I was in there that they lived this way. So it's, we're not an exclusive thing. We don't hold a monopoly on anything. This is, the 3 principles point to how things work. They're the fundamental laws to, the spiritual or non-physical side of life, the psychological side of life. But it doesn't mean that people will immediately jump to that understanding. And sometimes they find that understanding in other ways. Sid didn't need the 3 principles to find it, right?
I appreciate where you're going with this. I think you're saying something different than what I was alluding to, though, because it sounds, and correct me if I'm wrong, it sounds like you're going back into different approaches and how to explain this understanding versus other things that people are doing. But I'm trying to communicate something different. I may not be doing a great job of it.
Well, I just may not have picked up on it properly. Go for it.
Right. What I'm hoping to point to, and I'm a little muddle-headed here in the morning on Saturday, is that all the explanations for how things happen in the world arise in a bigger context. And that bigger context is awareness itself. In the 3 principles, we might call that universal mind, or mind is the one principle. That, and the others are devices Sid used to explain how this works. Even we ourselves are activities of that universal mind. If this is true, then we're going to have difficulties as activities of that trying to shape it into a tool to use with people. Because we're furthering this illusion that we're disconnected from those other people. But when we see more this one shared awareness that we are, then, and this is where I fumble with trying to explain it. So bear with me. It might come out mushy. When I know that I'm not this separate Joel in the world, but I'm actually part of the shared awareness with which my version of me and my version of everybody else and everything else arises, then I find that I operate with no need for anything to be different whatsoever. And all that's left is love. And oddly, an implication of that is when I'm dealing from that place, it seems to be helpful to the imagined other people that are out there that but I can't wield that as a tool in order to make that happen. The mechanism for making that happen is me seeing more who I truly am versus this imagined separate being that's having all these vivid experiences but isn't the true me. Now that may have been more confusing than anything I said earlier, but the upshot is I didn't want to suggest that I was looking for a method of how to position this understanding versus other understandings that people had. I was talking about something upstream of all understanding and where they all come from.
You know what, Joel? Before you started talking and we're trying to re-explain, I ended up writing a couple notes here, but what I got from what you said originally was speak from the heart, speak from love. And someone told me that when I stood up and got my first three-month medallion, my sponsor said, speak from the heart. And you know what? Some days, you know, I'm tired, I go to detox, or I'm tired and I go to an AA meeting, or I'm tired and I go to the 3 principles. And, you know, instead, get my ego out of the way is what I'm saying. Speak from love, speak from the heart, you know, and, you know, it's like, just shh, quiet, you know, loud Mary who thinks she's got a great opinion here. Try to quiet her down and let spirit lead me as best I can. And I love, this is something that I picked up from Wayne Dyer years ago, another wonderful example of spirituality. When I trust in myself, I trust in the wisdom that created me. And I'm not even sure what the leader guy's name is. Sorry, I'm on a different one. What's that guy's name? Anyhow, the guy who's running this meeting. There you are, Greg. Sorry, Greg. I think what Greg was saying too, after Greg spoke, I realized trust myself. I feel like when I go to my 3 principles meeting, sometimes they don't, my fellow 3 principles people that maybe haven't got the 12-step history behind them, they don't really want to hear about the 12 steps. And, you know, I think like Sid says, it's all the same, it's different words. And so what I've already garnered from this meeting is that go and be myself and trust the message that feels right for me that day, that moment. You know, share the message that feels right in the now, and hopefully keep my ego, gee, I want to change you all. Gee, I want you all to come along and be in the circle. Try to stay out of the way. Trust myself and stay out of the way. Anyway, thank you.
What I heard from Joel is describing having a spiritual awakening and trying to bring that about in someone else, but that's just what I heard.
Yeah, there is no set technique to it. Like I said before, that's why we're having these conversations. That's why I love this. You know, each of us has a different way that we bring this out in the world. And that's exactly the way that we need to bring it out in the world, is our own way. We don't need a set thing where it's like, oh, everybody should say exactly this script every time they talk to somebody. It's helpful to kind of know how to get a conversation started with people, but it's not helpful to have a particular conversation to have with people, if that makes sense. And I think that's part of what you're getting at, Joel. It's just coming out with love and compassion, because we're all connected. And we all get caught up in the story of me sometimes. You know, it would be wonderful to be rid of the ego, but at the same time, we can't, because that's our identity as a human being. However, who was it? There was that quote, something about, you know, the ego makes a wonderful servant, but a terrible master. I wish I could remember who said that, and that's probably not even the exact words, but you know, I try to keep that in mind, because yeah, I fall into ego too. We all do, and we're all going to. The three principles doesn't stop us from having that experience of being caught up in thought. But it helps us see when we are caught up in thought that we don't need to take it so seriously, and it's not this personal thing. It's just part of it. You know, and having that understanding, we tend to naturally not get caught up as often, or maybe not get as caught up, but we're still going to get caught up. We can't control which thoughts pop into our heads. We just go with the flow. So each of us has a unique experience we're bringing to the table. And that's exactly what the Three Principles community needs, is everybody to share their own experience. We don't need a prescribed method. And that's, I think, what people are talking about when they're saying there's nothing to do, there's no technique, is that there's no one particular way to approach it. You know, we come from different parts of the world, a lot of us. And, you know, there's that, I think it was an old Buddhist saying about the finger pointing at the moon. And when the person finally looks past the finger and sees the moon, they no longer need the finger anymore. And they instead become a finger. We're all fingers pointing at the moon, and we're all in different parts of the earth, so we're pointing at it from different angles anyway, right? But it's still the same moon. And it doesn't matter which finger is pointing at it. All that matters is that the person looking at the finger eventually looks past it and sees the moon. So Mary, you have the perfect message for the people that you will touch. You're not going to touch everybody, neither am I. No, neither is Joel or Scott or Chris or Emma or Tom or Dawn or Barbara or anybody else. We all have our own message and our own finger to point with. And the people that we resonate with, or whatever you want to call it, are going to see that. And those people will change. And it's not really even changing, it's coming back home. That's really the beauty of this, is it's not a new thing, it's just remembering. We're already there, we've just forgotten it.
Can I say something?
Yeah, go for it.
I was just, it just dawned on me, some of this discussion about how to not only understand, but also how to share or use these principles. And in a way, it's really interesting. I had this aha moment here, because I remember a long time ago, I was trained in NLP. And the way they made NLP years back was that they took these guys who constructed this method. They studied some great therapists, and then they wrote down what they did, kind of like a recipe. And then they started teaching a lot of people these recipes. But that was not the way these therapists really were working. The same so in a way, I think when you want to teach something, like painting by numbers, and then you're going to paint well. No, not really. But it looks nice, doesn't it? The red is there and the yellow is there, and it looks almost real, but it isn't quite, is it? So that I think that using your heart is really also the metaphor of the pointing that in the end we have to let go of our ideas and be present. So it's not like, oh, what shelf did I, where did I get? No, I need this book now, or this. It's more like really being present and I guess accepting what is, and you notice that you're looking at yourself. Yeah, that's it. You're looking at yourself. Wow. And I think somehow or another that we're the same makes the difference. Mm. Because people sense, and you yourself sense that it's not a construct. It's just what is. Now, talking about it is something different, because that tends to lead you away from what it really is. Yeah. So, but I think it's anything, if you take Christianity, there was this great guy, Jesus, and everyone, a lot of people loved him. And now what's he doing, And some started writing about how to do it. You see, already there we get this kind of these shelves of wisdom, yeah. But how do so realizing that Jesus is really something inside of us, yeah. It's not out there or it's not intellectual. It's something else, whatever you call it. That's the interesting part. Yeah. Yeah, I didn't know I was going to say that, but something like that. Thank you.
That was great, Chris. Thank you.
Love you.
Love you too. Oh,
Could I say something?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, hi. It's Dawn here from the UK. So I found the principles several years ago that also had trouble talking about it. Now, I'm a holistic therapist, and I talk to many people across the board about it now, and have been very interested in addictions, particularly recently. Now, for me personally, and I don't know if this is helpful to anybody else, and if not, just discard it, but how I've learnt to explain it in a simple way is to explain actually what's going on in the body, what stress is doing, and how it's playing out. And I can get this down to like 3 minutes, so you can do it fast. To point them to the fact that it's the conditioning on the outside that is making them look outside, as opposed to see and remember that neutral space that's within us all the time. I stopped using the 3 principles wording because I found almost it was confusing me, and it's interesting here you talk about it because it's kind of bringing that back through to me in a bit more clarity. So thank you, and I'm glad I found you. But that for me has worked really well. I've been able to introduce people and take them to home and to explain it to them in such a fashion. Doesn't matter who they are, how old they are. I've explained it to 3-year-olds in a really peaceful way. And when you show them the end, where they're looking for home almost first, and then explain how the body is getting away from that, somehow it makes sense to them, as it made sense to me. And I think then the spiritual side, the spiritual aspect of the principles is less scary for people, because for me, I was working in a great sort of physical way, but I could see across the board how it was the common denominator and overlaid it. Sorry, I've got a cat going mad in the background. How it all overlaid. So for me, taking them to that home bit first, as I said, is the best way. And I don't know if that helps anybody to maybe give that a try. But I just explain it as a domino effect of stress, and the fact that the stress is everything that's outside of us, which has got a duality to the nature of it. And we're either seeing it in a good way and a bad way. And if we're seeing it in a bad way, we're taking that on board and we're living that out. And I also very much teach people to view the body as a barometer. And I keep pointing them back to, when your body is experiencing something, it is based on thought. And I will suggest to people, and people find it very helpful, particularly when they're in pain or when they're using substances, to look at what thoughts are actually creating that, so they know what they're dealing with, and then to move forward then with the principles. And then I talk about the fact that we're all one anyway. So I don't know if that's helpful to anybody, and I don't know if it makes sense. I hope so. But thank you.
Oh, that's awesome, Dawn. That's like I said, it's kind of the point of this. What we're doing here today is to see how, the different ways that people are sharing this, and that's really my main point. I can't speak for Elise, but when I decided to be a part of this and start this group up, I wanted to show people that there is no one way. That we all have our own way to share it, and and as time goes on, we'll each get better at it, or not, or whatever. It just is what it is. Sid had a very hard time putting this in any kind of descriptive manner, and even like 3 principles was not his original thing. A lot of his old recordings, he talks about Christ consciousness. So there is no one particular way. And I love your way of doing it. You're pointing people home.
Yeah, and for me, whenever I start talking, people will come into me for sort of 90-minute sessions, and we just have a conversation. And I've been amazed at the more that I decided to talk from heart and to explain it as I saw it. I call myself a human mechanic, so it's kind of like as I saw how the body works and da-da-da-da-da. It's been fascinating to see the response from people, and the emails that I get are quite mind-blowing, and I can't believe that I've helped people. But I always start by saying that I'm not the master here, that actually we're all the master and we're all the student, and that's what it will always be. And I encourage them to share back to me what they heard, and I explain very much so that none of us are going to be perfect at this, not in this form, and so therefore they need to share back to me so that I can glean some of their wisdom, and that's the way to share. And it's really interesting. As I said, I explained it to a 3-year-old, and I explained it to a 12-year-old with alopecia who'd had some terrible things, and being able to just say it in such a succinct way. And I said to her, she was losing her hair, and I just said to her, I didn't acknowledge that I realised, although her mother had told me, and she came into me for something quite randomly different. And right towards the end of her hour session, she said to me that she was losing her hair. And I said, can I guess what thoughts might be going through your head? So she said, yeah. And I said, could it be something like, it's all falling out, it's not going to stop, I'm going to have no hair, blah, 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 whatever it was. And I used, and she said, yeah. And I said, was there anything else? She gave me her one. So I said, shall I tell you about vomit? I said, if I start talking about vomit, I will literally have all the signs and symptoms. My mouth will start watering and blah, blah, blah. And I'm there standing retching and gagging as I'm trying to say it. And she started laughing at me. And I said, that's how thought works. There's no reality here. It's all made up. And she just looked at me, and I sort of thought, oh my God, I've never met her dad before. He's sitting across the room. And I thought, have I gone too far here? And I said, I'm really sorry. I don't know if I overstepped the mark then. And he said, no, I like positive thinking. And I thought, okay, you call it positive thinking, others will call it mindfulness, others will call it weird, call it what you like. We're all talking of the same stuff. And I think that the gift and the beauty of life is that when we see a part of it, and when it's so difficult to explain it, it's when you find your voice, that's your gift. And your voice is the gift, and everybody else on the call their voice is the gift. And the more we share, you know, that's what we bring. That's what life is. It's growth. It's sharing, and it's just always pointing it back inside, and it's just beautiful. And like I said, I've never spoken like this openly, and I've certainly never come on a call before. I thought I didn't get it for such a long time, but it's really, I had a really bizarre experience a while back, and I realised I'd got this beyond anything, and made it my key thing to try and get it out there however I can without sounding like a crazy woman.
That's just beautiful. Everything you just said there, that's the purpose of why we're here on these calls.
I believe so. I believe so.
Yeah.
And of course, for me personally, sorry, I don't mean to command all the time, but for me personally, what I found is, since I have realized that we all have a unique gift, we all have a unique purpose in life. It doesn't matter who you are, whether you're a terrible person that's done terrible things, you all have a place on the planet. We all have a place on the planet. And I think that knowing that has made that we're all coming from one thing much easier to talk about. And once people are kind of on board and see how it works in the physical body, and then see how stress is playing out, and then take it a bit further and a bit further, suddenly you can introduce them to all the spiritual stuff. And it's so much easier to talk about that than the rest of it. It's taken me, I've been working with people for 30 years. And really the last 10 years, and not understanding, I don't think you'll ever understand the principles, because it's way too big, and I don't think you need to. I think just finding a little voice and hearing other people and just taking it forward, I think it will transform the world.
And that's the way it'll happen. People just like you. Just like all of us on this call here, everybody who will watch us later. Just
hope so.
Just share with love and compassion.
Yeah. Anyway, thank you.
Oh, thank you.
I just want to say thank you, Jane, as well. Awesome. You sound wonderful. And the word that too comes to mind for me, which I read in something recently, is cooperation. Working with others, cooperating, not, I think sometimes at a 3 Principles meeting with my now, they're friends of mine now, sometimes there can be competition, and it's like, no, opt out of the competition. We're talking about cooperation. I mean, competition is about the ego, and sometimes that just means being quiet and listening for me. So at any rate, thank you, Jane. This is I'm enjoying the call altogether. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Stop, little bugger. Sorry, I'm being attacked by my cat.
You see that?
I've been fending off 2 of them the whole time here.
He doesn't understand why I'm not talking to him. You're okay. You're okay.
Well, this was awesome, guys. Thank you so much for showing up. Really appreciate everybody's contributions here and what you guys are doing out in the world. Each of us has the power to open other people's eyes. And the only way to do that is by sharing our own experience. Yeah, that is one thing I took away from AA, was they talk about sharing your experience, strength, and hope. And that's the only way that you can carry the message. And that's still true here. That's true everywhere. There's no need to get caught up in the particulars of how you say it and what words you use, because words are things people made up anyway. We're talking about something that's there before words. So don't get caught up in the words. Just carry that love and compassion with you, and you'll reach more people than you'll even know. So I love you all. This has been awesome. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and we'll see you the first Sunday of next month. So the first Sunday in October.